Hello, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Beyond the Art in our series, The Stories That Carry Us. I'm your host, Cray Flynn, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Delaware Tribe of Indians. In each episode, we will discuss with various Native American artists, influencers, art leaders, and everyone in between their experiences, the communities they serve, and the translation and interpretation of the Native American art world today. Well, Bryan, welcome to Beyond the Art. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Enjoying the weather now. It's starting to get a little warmer today. So,
Absolutely.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. And tell us a little about yourself, your heritage, your cultural heritage, also what tribe you're affiliated to, and just some about your artwork that you promote and actually do.
Okay. My name's Bryan Waytula. I'm a Cherokee Nation artist. I work in such a wide range of mediums. It's hard to kind of just pinpoint me to one specific. I'm kind of
You're
like
a Renaissance man.
What?
I said you're a Renaissance man.
Oh, I'm not. I don't know about that, but I dabble in everything. I'm like a little kid. I see something, I want to try something new and kind of experiment in that. I was raised kind of with our Cherokee culture in mind. I learned how to basket weave as a young kid. My grandmother, who is a Cherokee treasurer in basketry, my mom's a Cherokee treasurer in basketry. So I was learning how to weave round reed, as a young kid, and then of course. Making some keychains, this and that. But my baskets tended to be a little bit lopsided, and would roll off the tables.
So how old were you when you started?
Oh gosh, I was probably maybe, I know I wasn't 10 yet. So I was pretty young, maybe 8, 9, maybe 10, somewhere around there. My favorite part of that was dyeing the reed, getting to pick the colors that my grandmother, would let us look at and say, here, pick what color you want. And that was my favorite part. But they tended to be lopsided. So she started handing me markers and crayons and colored pencils and things like that. And I kind of just went off on my own from there. I still weave a little bit, but you don't see those in those baskets in competitions or exhibitions.
So on your own personal use?
Yeah, I'll do that to kind of get back and just remember how to do it. And me and my mom, my brother's doing a lot of weaving now. My sister has done some weaving. They're much better than I am, but just to make sure I don't completely lose it, I go back and I'll weave one or two here and there.
So what drives you now in the crafts that you do in the art medium that you create now?
Let's see. What drives me is more or less I was a teacher for 14 years. And I would say that what drives me is probably educating the public or art admirers. When I do Santa Fe Indian Market, a lot of my pieces, I like to, they have a story that goes with them, whether I'm doing something in charcoal or, maybe something that's a realistic portrait, that I tell the history about that person, the story behind that person. And then if I'm doing something a little bit more contemporary, that has more, I did a piece called Sincerely Andrew Jackson. It was done kind of in a pointillism style. And it had some quotes from him on letters to Congress about the indigenous people and their thoughts. And it wasn't too flattering. And then I had a lady wrapped in a red blanket, and her hair was purple to kind of symbolize the cold during the Trail of Tears. And, so that kind of had a message, a little historic point to it, that when art admirers come up and ask about that piece, they're also educated about kind of the history of the U.S. government and the indigenous people across the United States.
So, do you take most of your inspiration from historical events, or is it more culturally associated to your heritage?
Both actually. I'll find something new, that I'm reading or that I find out, or that I come across, or one of my friends. I meet someone from a different tribe and they tell me about their story, just kind of how that has an effect on me. And then also some things about myself growing up, stories. When I was younger, the songs mom used to sing to us in Cherokee, the hymns to put us to sleep, just our language, just anything like that. I kind of, it's kind of broad, I guess, a little bit. It's not just about me. It's just the influences I've had as a child, as a young adult, growing up now, and then the people that I'm meeting.
So, do you find that a lot of the craft, the artistry that you do create now, has an essence of a part of you when you start creating? I mean, what is your process? Do you kind of sketch it out? Do you think it? Do you kind of block it out, or it just comes to you and you start going to town, so to speak?
I wish I was that good that I could just go to town. No, but it'll
You are
start
that
with
good. I've seen your
probably.
work.
Thanks. No, it's kind of like way I would teach my students. I start with a concept or an idea, or maybe just something that is, um, motivating me, or something that has stuck out that I read, an image, a story, something along those lines. And I've got a sketchbook of things laid out right now of projects I want to do, but I'm still waiting maybe to meet the right person, find the right model, um, in order to kind of evolve that. So it all starts with a sketch, pretty rough sketch, um,
Mhm.
and notes. Mainly, I write a lot of notes more than I really sketch. But yeah, I'll sketch something out very vaguely in my sketchbook, and then eventually I'll probably come back to it. Um, Later on down the road, because if I come up with an idea during November, December, January, even now, if it gets to be freezing, nobody's going to want to be out there modeling for me in that. So I have to wait and keep that idea kind of in my back pocket until spring and it warms up.
Right, right. So, is there a medium that inspires you to kind of push yourself to a next level that you haven't actually, let's say, put your hands on it as of yet?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. As artists, you're always trained to create things, or recreate them, or capture them in a realistic sense. You want things as proportionate or as realistic as possible. And I'm
Right.
still fine tuning my technique. Um, I've started to go from a lot of graphite to a little bit more charcoal. And instead of just using paper, I've started experimenting with large scale drawings, but doing those on canvas now, and then sealing those, which
Mhm.
has gotten a great response. But every artist out there, I would say, is trying to find that specific style, that identifies collectors, I guess, with them. I mean, you can tell what a Jackson Pollock is, a Picasso.
Right.
So I would say I'm still trying to search a specific style, but just the way I'm built, maybe I don't like being pigeonholing myself into one area, I guess. I mean, I really love drawing and getting realistic, that black and white, the contrast, the drama, in those portraits. I don't know if I could do that for the next 20 years consistently without being able to take a break and go have fun in color.
Right, right. And it's also the aspect of growing and kind of self-awareness and looking deep into yourself of how you want to expand and start creating other things and push your limits, I guess, in your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, because I've gotten there to before on pieces where I'm like, I'm not showing this to anybody. My son will see it, and I'm even like, don't look at that.
Do you think there's a continued theme or story that a lot of Native American artists are kind of directing themselves right now, since it seems we're on the upswing? The ebb and flow of Native American art is in, it's out, and now we're the it factor. Do you think there's a continued story that a lot of Native American artists are driving themselves to?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think it's still a continuation of just educating the public about, there's not just um, one tribe. There's not just one language. There's
Right.
not just one style. Um,
Hmm.
there's so many out there, and we're still trying to break that stereotype. And it's gotten a lot better from when I was younger, watching the old John Wayne movies, Cowboys and Indian movies, with actual Native Americans playing those parts and roles. And I think
Right.
it's still a steady progression upward in terms of education. And then also with um, I guess, the platforms that some of the indigenous people are holding in offices, in government offices, and starting to put the spotlight on um, the treaties, the
Hmm.
agreements that were done and ignored back then. And I think it's been a steady progression, and you see a lot of that in um, a lot of artists' work at various shows and museums and markets across the country. Um, so I would say it's still a steady progression.
Correct. I mean, our story didn't end at first contact or during
Hmm.
removal. I mean, we've continued to grow and morph and expand both all the nations across the country. I'm Cherokee in Delaware, and a little
Hmm.
bit of a Chickasaw and Muskogee Creek. Um, but I think all the tribal nations and communities across the country continue to grow and develop and expand. Just because we did something 200 years ago doesn't mean that's where our culture ended. I think that's
Yeah.
a way to educate the overall public, which kind of goes back to you being a teacher and education. Do you think a lot of the tribal communities are doing enough to educate the youth about our culture and our heritage and the art factor that we bring to their community, but also nationally?
Yeah, I believe so. I've been fortunate as an educator, an art educator, to where have my classroom and I'm able to, as a Cherokee artist, be able to kind of just have that as a small um, lesson in my classroom. Um, I've got to be able to teach the history of art, but also I get to incorporate a little bit about myself into that classroom. And I think they're doing it. It's being allowed a lot more um, in the classroom. I've gotten to go and speak and present since I stepped away from teaching, and kind of just express my history, my growing up, my vision as a Native American artist, and what I try to convey to people, admirers, when I'm across the U.S. showing my artwork. But I get
Right.
asked quite a few questions, just based on, I would say, history, more historic questions. Um, some I can't answer because I wasn't there, back
It
then.
wasn't
But
there.
um,
Exactly. What do you feel is some of your prominent work that's been recognized that you're proud of, but also the ones or pieces that you've done that you were surprised of the response that you've gotten?
man, I don't know. I've done so many pieces, and um, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what would be the first few. I did a piece that my mom and I have this, just this fun competition between the both of us, and that's been fun going to shows with her. But I finally had won, um, been awarded a best of show. Um, and I think I'm winning 3-1 or 2-1. I can't remember, but I did a charcoal drawing of one of our Cherokee treasures. Um, it didn't receive best of show, but I think it got a lot of, and it was my first piece that I tried experimenting with a large charcoal on canvas. It was a 4 foot by 5 foot. And that's not easy to do, put charcoal to canvas with that texture.
Hmm.
And I think the response that I got from that piece of Mr. Toby Hughes really sort of drove me to experiment and try again. And I did that in a couple more. And then that third one that I did of Michelle Reed, who's an amazing dancer and ambassador of teaching Native American culture around the world and performing, received a best of show. And I mean, a lot of detail went into that. I had beadwork, eagle feathers. I mean, it was definitely a challenge, and I would probably say that one. I think that piece would stand out.
Do you feel that Native American communities are doing enough to continue the cultivation of their culture and heritage and keeping it alive, both for those that are current, the youth, but I mean, we're losing our ancestral connection. A lot of the elders, are passing away that have that knowledge that have been around for the past 70, 80, some of them 90 years, and that
Yeah,
they're actually passing along that information because once they're gone, they're gone. And if we don't
it's
record it or teach the youth. So, I mean, it's a long winded question, but do you think that Native American communities are doing enough?
um, if they're doing enough. I'm not sure. I know I can only say from personal um, experience. I mean, I would like to think so. I know a lot of my art friends are always invited to teach their craft, um, to younger generations, even if some of them may not
Hmm.
be, from that same tribe. I know my mom was asked that question: what if she thought that oh, the history of basket weaving, is secure? And I know she couldn't really answer that question. It didn't feel like, like enough of the youth has an interest in learning the traditional ways of basketry. Round reed, I
Hmm.
see a lot of round reed done when it comes to buckbrush or honeysuckle. But when it comes to the river cane, the flat reed, that we were known for, in the southeast before removal, that's some. It's very hard, and it's hard to teach because I've been trying to learn.
Right.
Um, but she was very unsure about that. Um, and I kind of feel bad that I didn't take such an interest in it. My sister knows how to weave. My brother is progressing, and he's doing more and more and more. And that's kind of why I go back and try and weave a basket once. I feel bad, once a year. Um, but when it comes to the traditional arts, if you go to, we'll say for Cherokee Art Market, for example, you'll see Richard Fields there demonstrating his bows that he's done by hand. Mom's got her baskets and the river cane. Jane
Hmm.
Austin and Karen Walking Stick are treasures. They are there with the traditional pottery. Oh gosh, I'm leaving a gentleman out. I've seen his potter. He still does it the traditional Cato way, going and digging the clay, and he does demonstrations all over. Um, Chase Earls, oh gosh, took me a while. Um, so I mean, they're doing it, and they're educating the public, and they're educating hopefully younger students. But it's the youth
Hmm.
that, just like our language, they've got to take an interest and kind of you
Right.
know have that responsibility that they need to take on that and learn that to help it survive.
You only can push so hard for someone to gain interest in something. What motivates
Right,
you?
right.
What really drives you into creating what you create?
Uh, well, like I said, it would probably be just history and my upbringing. I kind of want to share what
Hmm.
it was like growing up in, I'm not just Cherokee, but I'm also Polish Italian. So I was completely two different ends of the spectrum growing up, and
Right.
kind of what life was like going to Chicago to visit family, and then coming back to Oklahoma and spending time with family here. Um, and I would say probably just the everything behind my work that's driven is probably just more or less more history, just trying to educate the public and
Mhm.
get away from a lot of those stereotypes.
Do you have an influencer that you look to, or not necessarily a person, but surroundings generically? Is there something that influences you when you start creating?
Well, growing up, I mean, you're exposed to various amounts of art history and art styles, so you learn um, all of these artists that have come along the way and made their mark. So there's a couple artists that I gravitate towards that I really like their work and always try to strive kind of I don't know what you'd say follow their career path somewhat, I guess you
Hmm.
could say.
Hmm.
But when it comes to me personally, I mean, obviously my parents are big influences. My mom and my grandmother because of what they did. And what they're doing, with their basketry and how Granny taught my mom and mom, they taught us as we were younger. Um, but my mom is a big influence in me as an artist. Just I'm trying to keep up with her. um,
Does she outdo
but
you,
and of
Brian?
course she's on a
All
whole
mamas
other
do.
level in her in basketry. And I have friends in our circle, in our artist circle, that I really admire and follow their work, and I'll and it's a fun competition. Like I said with my
Hmm.
mom, with our best of show joke. Like, oh, how many do I have? How many do you have, mom? I'll see one do a piece, and then I try and do another. Not the exact same or the same subject, but it's like, oh, you went with a 3 foot painting. Well, I'm gonna try and let's try this 4 foot painting here and see how I do. You do a 4 footer, I'm gonna do this 6 foot drawing, and it's different mediums, different styles. They have their own style, but we always just kind of, my art friends, we have that little I don't know what you call it, competition or
Right.
um,
It's like having a bigger brother, it's that civil or sibling rivalry in the art community.
yeah,
I
that
think
would
that
that would
you're not trying to.
that would definitely be
It
it.
and it also challenges you too. I think also at times,
Yeah, and we push each other. Um,
right?
we get comments to each other, and it is hard to give an honest critique. Like, let me know what you think of this, and you're like, I don't. Okay, you want my you
Exactly.
want my friend answer, or do you want my honest critique as an educator? But you're right. Yeah,
Right.
we do push each other. It's like, well, hey, man, have you ever thought about doing this in your painting? Or have you ever
Mhm.
tried about doing this with metal work, or just their style or their medium that they work in? We all help each other. I mean, it's a fun competition, like you said, sibling rivalry. Um,
Right.
but we're always just trying to pick each other up and encourage each other, because when we do these shows, we want all of us to sell out. We want everyone to win a first place ribbon or
Right. Right.
sell their big piece and everything. So, but you're right. Yeah, it's like it's an encouraging sibling rivalry, that we have.
Is there a time of day that you feel more inspired in creating, or is it something that when you wake up, you have something in mind, you start to go, or is it more of a later response throughout the day that you try to collectively bring your thoughts together? And
Yeah, definitely not the morning. I have to have my coffee. I have my routine in the morning. I love, not teaching and coaching. I have the opportunity to make my son breakfast in the morning and make his lunch and take him to school every day. So usually my morning is kind of spent just kind of getting my thoughts together, maybe looking through my sketchbook, getting my plan. And even if I already have a project on the easel or on the drawing board, it isn't probably until about 11 o'clock and later in the afternoon that I really get going. If you were
Mhm,
to ask me
mhm.
when I was probably in my 20s and in college, it would definitely be like late night, spending those late nights slinging paint
Right.
in the studio or on the campus at OU. But it's changed as I've gotten 20 years older.
I hear you. When time wasn't sleep wasn't as important in our youth that it is
Yeah.
now. Uh, Having that good night's sleep and slow time to wake up in the morning. What are your thoughts on how Native American artists and the Native American art world is bringing to society as a whole in the art world here in this country and also on a global platform?
Um, well, I'm not sure about global. Um, I've sold a piece as far as New Zealand. I think that's as far as my art has stretched, but I haven't been there physically. But I mean, just how when you come to our Santa Fe Indian Market, which is one of the largest and oldest running markets in the world, you see a wide range of different collectors who are just they just enjoy what we do. I mean, the jewelry,
Mhm.
the pottery, the basketry, the graphic arts, the style, the fashion shows now. Um, you're starting to see. Usually, you would see more or less people wear, oh, I don't know what you call it, maybe indigenous style or Native American style fashion, just at powwows or ceremonies. Um, but now I think that you're seeing it more and more on a daily basis in the office, or maybe even out, you know, um, at a reception or a dinner, or going out to a Broadway theater or something. A lot of that dress that we had
Mhm.
was more or less just for ceremonies. Um, but I think
Right.
it's progressed now to where more and more people are seeing what we're doing as artists and what we're creating. And I mean, here in Oklahoma, with the show Res Dogs, um, how that has started to gain a following after its first season being on TV. I think I think that show is up for a third season now, or maybe a fourth season.
I
Um,
believe so, correct, yeah.
but I mean, growing up, I don't recall any kind of show like that. Um,
No.
I
Well,
mean,
plus it
so
was a
it's
representation that was out there too in the medium.
mhm,
We didn't all
mhm.
live in teepees or have feathers in our hair,
Yeah,
you know?
and that's the stereotype that we're all trying to break as artists. It's like um, you know, trying to distinguish the difference. When you go to a show and you're talking to a collector, it's like, um, we lived here in Oklahoma at Cherokee. We lived at different kind of houses than the Plains Indians, and that's the
Mhm.
stereotype that they had in Hollywood, and everybody watched movies. So it was that platform where you had a big audience and you were teaching them, but you were kind of teaching them kind of the wrong way, I guess, back then. But I would say it's still gaining momentum. I know we're, as a Cherokee Nation, trying to um, seat a representative now from treaties that weren't honored. That we're trying to get our representative now um,
Correct.
in DC. So I would say it's, again, it's just a steady progression that just keeps gaining momentum more and more.
Correct. So, do you think that with the various art exhibits and fairs and other venues, it's helping promote Native American artistry as a, how would I put this, a significant entity in the art culture? That we're not just a roadside niche, I guess, or
Yeah, not anymore. I would say. I mean,
Mhm.
I've had thoughts. I'll be driving around Oklahoma and be like, huh, I could sit on that corner and maybe do a pop up show. Just back in the day, where you see them selling, the farmers selling their
Right.
watermelons or tomatoes and stuff. I'll
Right.
catch myself doing that because when I was younger, that's kind of how you either had to go to the Heritage Center to sell your keychains or baskets, or you have that
Mhm.
lemonade stand you stick out, that table you put out in front of the road, and we'd have our baskets and our
Right.
lemonade right there. Um, but yeah, the platform that they give us, the museums, the art markets, the organizations. I would say it's grown a lot from when I was maybe in college and younger.
Mhm.
More opportunities now for grants, more opportunities for fellowships, more opportunities for artists to come and speak and just educate. I'm hoping to fill out a fellowship for um, a museum up north. I don't want to name names right now, but and then part of that fellowship is being able to go to two or three of the universities in that area and then show and speak about your artwork. So the
Mhm.
platforms I would say that they're giving and the opportunities are a lot larger now than when I was in high school.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you feel, what's your thoughts, and do you feel that a lot of the Native American artistry that's out there, maybe more on the Generation X side, is more political and has something to say? There's more of a deeper substance into the artistry instead of being more geared to cultural elements and historical elements?
Yeah, the younger generation, I can definitely see, in their artwork, that it has a little bit more historical reference in their pieces, um, and, and 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 I'm not sure. Like I said, the trying to pass on a lot of the traditional knowledge. Like you said, you see a lot of the graphic arts, visual artists. Um, Doing work, and I would say a lot of the subject matter does have to do more with um, history, more of a history lesson. Um,
Mhm.
but and that's where I catch myself. I'm kind of a different generation, and I mean I appreciate everything from my past, and what my grandmother and mother did. I guess protecting uh, that knowledge in basketry, and like I said, I kind of catch myself where as I'm getting older and my mom's getting older, and she's starting to kind of slow down with her weaving because as children we always think our parents are going to be around forever. So I'm
True,
still
true.
kind of fighting with that inside as an artist and as a uh, Cherokee that maybe I take a year off of doing my artwork and go back and learn and try and save some of that knowledge so that I have it or I can teach it. If my son gets older, I can teach him how to weave a
Mhm.
round reed basket, which honestly I haven't done round reed in a long time, but I could probably still spin one out. Um, but it's the river cane, the double and the single wall river cane, just the process. We'll still
Right.
go out to the um, cane breaks. I'll go with her and my stepdad, and my mom will go out there and she'll pick what she wants and he lops it down. I carry it out and break off all the branches and load it up. And then she's still doing everything from hand. So I learned that process, but it's the weaving process I really want to try and maybe fight with, taking a year off of my own artwork or 2 years and being able to do that. So yeah, I would say the younger generation's more history based, but I've seen some younger ones come up, that are doing some of the traditional arts that, I give them stand up and applause for that, because like I said, there's not a lot of younger people interested in what they would consider, old. It's like music, I guess. No, it's if I were to say, oh man, I'm talking to my son, that's some classic rock, he might be like, that's old
Right.
rock, doesn't make it classic. It's kind of like that in
That's
the
old
art world
school.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bust out some Metallica and he'll be like, Dad, what is this?
That's funny. Is there any subjects or anything you want to discuss or promote? Anything upcoming that you actually are participating in or exhibiting with some of your pieces?
Well, right now it's kind of my off season, which is a nice time to kind of step away. But I say that I'm still working. I'm still sketching. I'm still creating inventory for shows. Doing applications. I just finished my Santa Fe Indian Market application, so hopefully good news when I get that letter back in a couple months.
Right.
A couple fellowships applying for, helping a friend who's running for tribal council with their campaign, doing some design work for them to kind of help their campaign. I'm gearing up for teaching with the Chickasaw Nation their arts academy again. Then I'm going to do their spring breakout. I have a pretty cool thing coming up with Eighth Generation, which is a native-owned company in Seattle. They did a national call for artists, and I was one of the artists selected for their design, and going to be releasing a Cherokee-based pattern, kind of that I compiled with my mom's baskets that she's done, patterns that Cherokee basket weavers have done. So that's going to be coming out hopefully in the next month or so. So excited to kind of promote that and showcase our Cherokee culture, across the U.S. But that's really it. Just waiting to hear back on some shows, some fellowships, filling out applications, a little design work here and there, creating inventory, and then just maybe a project or two here and there coming up.
Right. So do you exhibit and participate in a lot of the markets nationwide, or are you just pretty much local into the vicinity of New Mexico, Oklahoma?
I've done, let's see, I've been invited out I've shown at the Autry Museum out in LA. I was able to put up a couple design posters up in, oh gosh, what do they call it? It's Indian Alley, but I forget what they actually, Skid Row. That's it. That's the word. In LA. And that was an experience. I've shown at the Heard Museum in Phoenix, the Idle-Jorg Museum up in Indianapolis, obviously here in Oklahoma, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm really trying to find an opportunity, if someone wants to give me one, out east. I think I went to New York for the National Art Educators Convention. But I would love to have the opportunity to show at a museum or a gallery out there on the East Coast.
Do you actually do commission work?
Yeah, I do commission work, and those are the commissions I usually will take on during my off season. I've done, I'll have clients want to come in, and it's not necessarily Native American artwork, just a portrait, family portrait. I've done. When COVID hit, I was doing marker drawings and colored pencil drawings, mixed media on little 8x10s of guys and their favorite Hot Wheels and, their classic cars. So right. I was doing that. I've done artwork for
Hey, you got to pay
professional
the bills.
athletes. Oh yeah, you know it. I was doing
Yeah.
artwork for some professional athletes and their charities. So yeah, the commissions they're not always like my style or anything. It's kind of,
Hmm.
you know, they like me as an artist and they want it done this way,
Right.
and I try and um, you know, satisfy what they're wanting. I did do some cleats though on my own that were man, they were a handful. They were not easy. It was my first experiment, so I did some beaded moccasins. They were plains Indian style beaded moccasins that um, my friend had done. He's a beater. Actually, he's an amazing artist. He does work for all the Hollywood movies too that you see. Anyway, he had beaded this player some moccasins,
Hmm.
and so I wanted to try and do something for him. He's a Cherokee pitcher. He pitches for the St. Louis Cardinals. Ryan Helsley. Okay, he's their closer. He can launch that baseball, you know, 100 miles an hour. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, I think I've got a really neat idea for you. You'd be interested in doing some cleats for you. And of course, he was in agreement for it. And he sent me some huge sneakers. Um, and you know, sanding those down, prepping them, it was kind of a new medium for me. But you know, you could see it, the progress on my Instagram. Um, and he got them back and was blown away and gave me a shout out on that, and wore them in a couple games. He was actually afraid to wear them
All right.
to play in because yeah, they look good. And I posted it on social media, and I'd gotten so many comments like, it's nice. Some lady, I remember this one, she said it's nice, but it's unpractical. I think that when he slides or runs in them, the beadwork's going to break. And I didn't have I felt bad because I was wanting to tell this lady, I was like, well, it's not actual beadwork, it's paint, it's simulated
Right.
beadwork. And she was like, oh. So, I mean, that was a neat project that I did. And I hope those are kind of projects I kind of do in my off season if commissions are slow that I can kind of play with, because that was my first time
Right.
doing cleats, baseball cleats.
Very cool. I'd like to see those. What's next for you? What's on your horizon besides of the other things coming up? Is there anything that you want to achieve in your craft, in your artistry?
Um, well, I really would love it if I had the opportunity and the time to create a body of work. I'm working on what I call a Kandinsky mashup, and it's using his concentric circles that he would use just to, I guess, emphasize different colors and how they would stand against each other. And
Hmm.
he would do them just in circles. So I'm trying to do a mashup of that where I'm taking the concentric circles and an image and starting to mash those together to kind of create some kind of just a portrait. And I would love it if I could get, you know, had the time to where I could produce 10 6 foot by 5 foot portraits in this style. Um, and that's something, again, in my sketchbook, I have notes. This is something I would really like to do and have an opening of that for, you know, you know, ideally it'd be great
Hmm.
a month in New York or something. But just you know, that would be something I would really like to achieve.
Sounds interesting. That's quite a large piece. 6 foot by 5 foot.
Yeah, and if I'm sure you've seen it before. It's the portrait of my friend Eric, who's kind of he's sitting there and he's got his axe across his chest, and he's
I
got the
think I
beaver
have.
pelt
Yeah.
down. It's done in the blues. Yeah, I would love to be able to do about 10 to 12 of those and be able to have that body of work up at once where people could. But you know, the way it goes is I, I'm blessed too, because once I finish a piece, it doesn't. I don't hang on to it very long. It's usually sold or it's in a home or something. So it's a good
Hmm.
problem to have, I guess.
Yes. That's true. So, what's next for you? What else is coming
Oh,
up
let's
that you
see.
can
Well,
think about?
surgery's next for me. That's my
Oh.
biggest. That's my next project. Fixing an injury on my foot that I've been putting off for 20 years. I hurt it walking on at OU back in my youth. Um, and so rehab on that, I'm looking at maybe late February, and then I'll be gearing up for the Muskogee art market here in Tulsa. That'll take place in April. And then
Hmm.
March is usually the time I start working on my figures that I'll release in October. So I do these limited edition one of one figures basically, and I'll pick a story or an animal or some kind of figure behind that, and then I do my modeling clay and then cast that in resin and then go from there. I usually start those in March just so I can have them done in October in time for the Cherokee Art Market.
Long process. Well,
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
can't do it.
anything.
It's spread out, but
Right, right. Anything else you can think of that you want to bring up or discuss or share with us and our listeners?
oh, I'm trying to think. Like I said, it's hard to talk about myself. And just other than art shows coming up that really I'm just like right now. What are we in? Is it January? It's January
Yeah, we're in
already.
January.
So I mean, I'm gearing up and thinking of projects for Santa Fe Indian Market, which is in August, I believe, and then I'm already starting to contemplate pieces for Cherokee Holiday. Um, and then also Cherokee Art Market, which is out in October. So right now I'm
Mhm.
starting to my off season's coming to an end, so now I start to build up projects and pieces for the shows that come later in the year.
Right,
It's like I work
right.
early in the year just to get to the middle and end of the year. But
Do you collaborate at all with other artists in your medium or outside your medium in creating pieces?
so I've always been nervous about the collaboration. Um,
Right,
Mainly, I like making people happy. I like people smiling and everything. And working in a collaboration seems great. And I did it for the first time with a friend of mine who's Chickasaw. And it's the Collective Wisdom exhibit. And it's traveling right now. It was in Ada with the Chickasaw Nation on display. Now it's going to be in Tahlequah with the Cherokee Nation. And it's going to be at the Cherokee Springs Plaza. And I think it's actually going to be opening January 14th. Um, and
okay.
it's going to last until February 25th. So I did a collaboration with my buddy Billy, and he's a great artist. Um, and it's always hard to try and find two different, styles and mesh them together to create a really
Right, right.
a good piece. Yeah. Um, so this was the first collaboration I really done, and it was a lot of fun. I did some kind of like it looks like a stained glass mosaic type, but I used different size variations of circles to create depth,
Mhm.
and then he did the background in that in his style, and so I'll be going down there and hanging out with a lot of very accomplished artists who have work in
Fantastic.
this traveling exhibition, and um, just yeah, I'll probably just joke around with him and everything about just how I ruined the piece or something. His part and everything in that piece is perfect, but I'm sorry you got stuck with me. And I'm sorry I ruined it. I think it would look better if you worked with another artist.
There's that sibling rivalry and challenging again.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Brian, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So, where can our listeners see your pieces or get a hold of you? Um, I think we have that contact information, but if you have a specific website you could share with us.
Collectors can find me on my Etsy shop. I know that's funny to hear too, but I love Etsy. Um, And if you go on Etsy and you can just search for my name, Bryan Waytula, or if you go to
Okay.
my Instagram, you can find my works and my Etsy link on there to my store. My Instagram is at way too legit, and I can send you that information on how
Perfect.
to spell it and everything.
Okay.
And then the images I can get to you, or if you just want to pull them off my Facebook.
So, Bryan, it was a pleasure having you today, and thank you for the time. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and more success to you. You're a fantastic artist, and I enjoyed your pieces. And when I've seen it at the market, I actually saw you this past year in the Cherokee Art Market.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for coming on to the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Wado, dona dog,
Wado.
So thank you, and until we meet again.